So I've been following their content for a couple of months now. If you were to ask each one of them individually, they would probably confirm that I probably like and react close to everything that they put out on social media. I can't tell you how many times I open up my notifications and the energy billionaires reacted to your comment. The energy billionaires have reacted to your share. So separately, I have Emily all the way from the United Kingdom, and I have Ruby all the way from Indonesia. So, ladies, I want to first and foremost thank you for your time and thank you for being willing to join the conversation today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Very excited to be here and to chat.
It is very rare when I get to talk to two people at the same time. And so I would be remiss if I didn't begin this conversation with learning a little bit about you. So, you know what? Just so there's some sort of cohesiveness with this, I think I'm going to begin with Ruby since I've had a video chat with Emily already. So, Ruby, I'd like to just get a little bit about your story and your background and perhaps how you and Emily met. And ultimately, I need to understand how and why you ladies chose the Energy Billionaires as your Instagram handle.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a wild story of how we ultimately ended up there. But we will get there. Yeah, a little bit about me, about my background. I am originally Dutch. I'm half Indonesian, so currently I'm living in Indonesia. Yeah, I grew up in a small town in the Netherlands, and I always felt a little bit like the odd one out, but I don't know, as a kid you always just kind of like go with it. And in my mind I was like, okay, I really, really want to become a lawyer, mainly because I was very addicted to suits. I always thought the clothing they wear was like really sick. So I was like, yeah, that's what I want for the rest of my life. And then I ended up going to law school, and then I realized, okay, this is actually not what I want because it's very dry. It's not at all how I felt. Yeah, I was gonna spend the rest of my life like in a law book, and then I kind of got lost a little bit because I was so focused and steered on, oh my god, I'm gonna become a lawyer, and then all of a sudden I was like, no, actually, I won't. And at the same time, COVID also hit. And then everyone was already like doing online, working online. And then I was like, maybe I should also kind of pursue that. So I just decided to do that and kind of like burn all my bridges, move to Bali because I was like, what if it's COVID and I'm locked inside and it's so cold in the Netherlands? Why should I do that? Maybe I should just go to a place where it's more sunny. And then if I'm locked inside, at least I can see the sun. So I did that. And actually, the working online, so I started a brand, an e-commerce brand. It went so. And it was also around the time that TikTok really blew up. Already in the US was already blowing up, but Europe is always a little bit behind. And then I started making some videos for my e-commerce brands. And yeah, from one day to another, just completely sold out all of my stock. And then I was like, oh my God, this video is really something. This is something. And I was always very creative as a kid. Yeah, I kind of like pursued the whole video making for my e-commerce brand. And then I rolled into having like a creative agency. And that's also what I'm doing now. So I'm mostly doing creatives for other brands. And yeah, on my journey of becoming like a creative agency owner, you could say, I was spending a lot of hours inside of a co-work. I was still in Bali, so it was sunny, but I was spending a lot of hours inside of a co-working. And that's where I met Emily.
The
We
rest is history.
The rest is history. We have this notorious deck. For us, it's notorious because the co-working has like a couple of levels. And I was just on the outside deck level and I saw Emily and I was just like, I need to talk to you. That's where our friendship started.
And without cutting off your story, Rubes, because I know there's more, and also happy to share, Steve, at any time, more background on myself. But I think what's interesting about the time that I met Ruby is we were both going through some stuff at the time, some
Yeah.
relationship stuff. And it was weighing us down in more ways than we realized. And I think I'll speak for myself, and if I may try Ruby as well, but I feel like at that time we were both a little lost and insecure and lacking confidence in ourselves. And for whatever reason, we met at that exact time where we were both trying to do the work, right? Trying to journal, trying to meditate, trying to do affirmations, but none of it was really landing. And I think the magic in us meeting at that moment is we were able to come together somehow and really talk about everything we were going through, try and get to the heart of it. And again, speaking for me, but Ruby has been my partner in crime in this whole journey of self-love and healing and development and growth. And I think we needed to go through that together and come out the other side for the Energy Billionaires to be born. And yeah, happy to then talk about the crazy Instagram handle and how that came about. But yeah, we feel lucky that we met at that time. And I don't know if you have people in your life like that and you're like, oh yeah, like I was meant to meet that person at that time.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting about that is when I first started these conversations, I was simply trying to hear people's stories. That was my main objective. I was hoping to learn a little bit. I was hoping to, hear some good stories, give people a platform to be able to share about themselves. I don't have a top podcast like Joe Rogan or Chris Williamson or The Diary of a CEO. So I'm not as viral as that, but people still have story. People have still gone through life and people have still experienced hurt and pain and grief. And so to your point, Emily, an unexpected benefit of all of these conversations is finding people not on a deck in a co-work space in Bali, but as a result of these conversations. And now I have the opportunity to be in community and be in relationship with people all around the world. I have people in Bali. Now I have someone in Indonesia. I have someone in the United Kingdom. I have people in Australia. I have people in Canada. And so it has been a global community that has been incredibly beneficial because even now I'm going through probably what might be one of the most difficult seasons in my life. And yet there's something that can be said about the right person or the right people that come into your life at the right time. And it's almost like this synergistic, energetic connection that happens where they talk about soulmates in terms of a male-female connection, but I'm convinced that you can experience a similar reality even with a man and a woman with a woman, where you just find that person that is like the yin to your yang and you connect. And so building on that, what I want to do is I do want to hear about the energy billionaires because I've heard it said that EQ and emotional intelligence is the new currency. But then I come across your page and I see the energy billionaires, which automatically leads me to believe that it's possible for there to be an energy deficit. And there's a contrast between an energy deficit and energy abundance. So whichever one of you ladies wants to take this, I have to hear the story of how and why you chose this as the handle.
I'm gonna leave this one to you, Ems, because this is a wild one.
It is wild, but I think the place to start is actually explaining the concept. So, as I said, Ruby and I have both been through a lot of internal work and growth and healing, and much of it we've done together. And what we realized is at the core of all of these different thinkers that you might listen to, or podcasts that you might listen to, or modalities, maybe you've tried meditation, as I mentioned, or maybe you're a hardcore journaler. At the core of all of it is being so secure in yourself and so rooted in yourself that you're not expending your energy on chasing the person or the thing, the bag, the next job, whatever. The core of it all that we felt was when you can command your internal energy, your internal world, that's when your external reality changes. That's when you meet the person, you get the job, opportunities open. But without going internally first, none of it is going to work. And so that's the core belief of the Energy Billionaires. It's a little bit of a provocative title, but the metaphor we like to give is if you have that internal light and that internal energy, that is wealth. Like that is success. That is the thing that is going to open up financial opportunities, if that is your thing and you're talking about billions in financial terms. But maybe it's not. Maybe you want to be abundant in love or in friendship or community. But once you have that core, anything is possible. And so what we are trying to do with this page is help women in particular, but of course it's universal, understand the different threads of that piece of really loving yourself, being whole, so that you can change whatever element it is in your life. And there's a whole fun metaphor that we've extended with the laws of energy economics, right? And we can touch on those later. But I think sometimes putting it in real, tangible language like that, because there are facts of energy, right? Like if you're giving out good energy, you're going to get back good energy that are a little bit more tangible than some of the, woo-woo, just be a good person stuff you hear. So we're trying to make it a little bit more digestible and tangible through this economics metaphor. Rubes, I don't know if you want to add, and also if you want to add some backstory as well.
Yeah. And I think it's beautiful, Stephen, that you just said, when I look at the name and I see energy billionaires, that also implies that you can have a deficit. And that is, I think, a beautiful reaction that the name gives, because that's for sure something you can have, an energy deficit, and it's not so simple as, oh, I'm tired, but also doing things that don't give you energy, like saying yes when you actually want to say no. And Emily and I both had this beautiful kind of like spiritual journey where we were like, sometimes in order to grow in life or to get the things you want, you need to believe in it before it's tangible. And oftentimes that is being shoved like in the same corner as manifestation, and that can be very spiritual or too, like Emily said, woo for a lot of people. And we felt this friction in ourselves because we were like, it's such a good tool to get the life you want, but because it's often classified as, oh, that's something that a spiritual person does, a very rational person who could also benefit from it will not go there, because you need to believe in something that's not there. So then we are just trying to make it very tangible for everyone. And energy, everything comes from energy, but energy is very like positive and a little bit spiritual, and a lot of people have a kind of like negative connotation with billionaire, because in order to be a billionaire you need to take from other people. And that's, I think, also the fun take on it, that we see like an energy billionaire is something completely different. It's someone who has so much energy that it can extend to any aspect of their life. Someone that's an energy billionaire is not only guarding their energy, but also investing it in systems that can like multiply their energy for them. And yeah, it was not that we woke up and we're like, this is it. The name was trial and error. Funnily enough, in the same co-working where we met, yeah, we had this revelation of this is it. And we both looked at each other like, yeah, this is it.
You know, what's so interesting about that is along these lines of having a deficit. For me personally, one of the things that I found has caused me to operate from a deficit rather than from a place of abundance is shrinking myself to fit into rooms and environments and places and even relationships that were never able to hold me. And I think a lot of people, they find themselves operating in a deficit. I would say one of two reasons. Number one, because they shrink themselves in environments and relationships that were never able to hold them. But I also think trying to expand and grow and mature and heal in environments that aren't able to sustain it as well. Even as recently as last night, I did a post from a conversation that I had, interestingly enough, with a therapist. And in the course of the conversation, I began realizing that one of the things that's not only robbed my energy, but has robbed my joy, has robbed my peace, and ultimately my ability to rest. Because I think with energy comes this inner rest that you experience, this inner security that you have where, like Emily said, where you love yourself. And correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, but I think that there is this element of understanding your worth and understanding your value that's directly in alignment with the energy that you're wanting to not only obtain and maintain, but project to the world. Because I am very good and I have been very good at giving all of that away in an attempt to please people, in an attempt to perform. And at the end result, the main byproduct of that is something that I don't think a lot of people realize, and that is compromising your identity and compromising who you were really created and put on this earth to actually be.
Yeah, 100%. And for Emily and I mean, yeah, Emily, you can obviously speak for yourself, but we we've really been through that. And that's also why we really feel the message of energy billionaires. And sometimes it's not even that noticeable. You do it because it's so ingrained in your behavior to not speak up, to make yourself small, even like making your body smaller, not taking up space because you subconsciously think that you are not allowed to do that or you take up too much space. All of those things really, yeah, really subtract the energy because you keep thinking about it the whole time. And yeah, we feel for unlearning that. That's kind of like also what we're trying to teach, because once you get out of those behaviors and of those things that drain your energy, you really do become a different person.
Yeah, and I really really resonate personally on a personal level with everything that you just mentioned, Steve. And I think that all of these factors come together in quite an ugly way at certain times, and they're all interlinked, right? Like the shrinking, and then you're in difficult environments. You start questioning your worth. It's all in this like weird cycle that happens, and that's what makes it so hard to break sometimes. And I also think that the main reason we're doing is that we believe it is a universal thing that people experience. Everyone's performed, everyone's been in rooms where they feel uncomfortable, they've had to shrink, but it's not necessary, like that there is a way to break that and to be able to live in total flow and alignment and find that joy and light daily. And because it is such a web of all of these different factors, I think it's different for everyone to find which one they address first. Like it's so hard to do all at once. For me, like at the core of it is this idea of really knowing your worth and knowing that you are inherently worthy just as you are, without any performance, any accolades, like whatever it is. You are inherently worthy. You are inherently worthy of your dreams, your aspirations, your ambitions. And once you can really internalize that and accept that, it's one of the paths to stop shrinking yourself and to have the confidence to do that, to change your environment. But it's often hard to know where to begin. I know other people who have managed to get out of this weird web by changing their environment. And when you change your environment, they're around different people, and that's the catalyst for everything. So sometimes it is a question of like, playing around with the different variables. Wild to me still that often the default mode is to think you're unworthy or to not be comfortable. And as Ruby said, it's that process of unlearning.
Head. But
Uh,
then, yeah, you need to act.
you know what's interesting? And at the top of your ladies page, it says meet M. And one of the things that I saw in the carousel for M, and it is something that I think we need to do. It's scary as hell. It hurts like hell. It's uncomfortable. In some ways, it's unfamiliar. And it sounds like you ladies have both experienced this in one way or another. But sometimes you just have to torpedo everything that you thought you needed in your life. Sometimes you just have to blow things up. Sometimes you just have to be willing to throw caution to the wind, and you have to be willing to. And Emily, even in your post where you talked about being a straight A student, you work for one of the top companies in the world, and you essentially described your own journey with just blowing everything up. You went from London to Bali, and I've heard a lot about Bali. I have some really close friends that actually live there right now. And to me, it seems like there's almost this awakening. And when I hear of what both of you ladies say, is that there is this invitation for people to wake up. A lot of people are asleep at the wheel, so to speak, but not even just asleep at the wheel, but they're asleep at life. And they don't realize what's going on around them. And one of the shows that is wildly popular or was wildly popular here is The Walking Dead. And I think there's a lot of people that are walking around as the Walking Dead. They're in society, they're in culture, they're maybe in relationships, they're in careers, they're in environments, and yet they're just existing and they're going through the motions and they don't realize it. And that's why I appreciate what you ladies do, is because for me personally, a lot of people are living so far beneath what they're capable of doing. They're living so far beneath. Forget just the fact that they're shrinking themselves. Their whole method of living is so far beneath what they're actually capable of. And I look at what you ladies are doing. And again, Emily, I'm referring to your post because it's pretty much at the top of your ladies' page, where there's this shift and there's this dynamic where now all of a sudden, instead of operating from a deficit, now you're operating from a surplus. You're operating from abundance. And so, a question that I can't help but ask, and I'd love to get both your ladies' take on this, is we may be able to understand what it takes to become an energy billionaire. We may understand what it takes to operate from that place. How come so many people are broke? But what keeps people from being broke? Because broke to me equals stuck. Broke to me equals a life that is so far removed from even remotely understanding who they were meant to be.
Yeah, I love all of that. For me, the first thing I think is important to caveat this with is, because I've been there, I feel zero judgment and zero blame for those people who you would describe as broke, right? I've been one of them. And the reason I say this is my take is much more macro at the level of, I think we are conditioned almost from birth to fall into this fear mindset of doing anything out of the ordinary, to fall into this like big aversion to risk, to fall into the path that's very easily been laid out for us, to fall into what's expected of us by society. I think that those conditions are much stronger than we think. And they're also often emotionally loaded too. Your parents might expect you to follow a certain path. Your friends might be pulling you back from doing anything differently. So the first thing I think that's so important to make clear is it's not, it's not because it's not anyone's fault that this is the case on an individual level. It's just these forces that are so strong often against us. But equally, what I think is beautiful and what I see happening a lot is, because information is so easily and widely available now, you can follow whoever you want on Instagram, you can listen to whatever podcast you want. I do think that there are these sparks of inspiration that people have from like listening to this that makes them think, oh yeah, I do have this weird itch that maybe this isn't it, or this isn't the path in life that I feel most connected to. And so there are now these sparks that get you out, but it's difficult. I don't know, Ruby, what you think in terms of the why, but I think it's a lot of fear and a lot of aversion to risk, which has been programmed into us.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think there's also different levels to broke. Like you have some people that are broke with money, but you also have people that have a lot of money but don't have, for example, a lot of time or a lot of emotional bandwidth. And I think the metaphor that you're describing with The Walking Dead is really beautiful, especially when I first got into all of the like mindset and the energy stuff. I remember vividly that I was actively telling all my friends, like, oh my God, you should do this. This is insane. Like, this whole mindset thing, like, it's going to change your life. And everyone was just a bit like, Yeah, that seems a bit weird. I'm not sure about that. And I was literally trying to wake people up like this is how you're going to get anything you want in life, but also at that time I didn't have really so much to show for it. And what I also believe about why there's a lot of people being broke is because there's also like money is a weird thing where money also has an implied worth of you, basically. So if you have a lot of money, that in our society, it means that you have value, which is sometimes crazy. But if you are conditioned to make yourself small and to not be loud or take up a lot of space, that can not only show up in your behavior, but also in your behavior towards money. So there are really people that overspend because they don't think they are worth having more. So that's another example where you can see how important it is to have like a strong mindset and a strong vision of your energy is so important. And I think also for Emily it's the same, but before we even started Energy Billionaires, we had like a different venture where we were trying to teach women how to use AI. And it stems sort of from the same belief as Energy Billionaires, where the information is so widely available. Why is not everyone using it or teaching, educating themselves? And that's simply from the same core, and that's people don't think they're worth it or they don't think they are capable of it.
You know, one of the things that I can't help but think is that even though someone might be broke, broke doesn't equate brokenness. And broke doesn't mean that you're broken. And I absolutely love that because although there might be a lot of people that are broke energetically, there might be a lot of people that are broke spiritually, there are a lot of people that are broke emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever reality you want to equate being broke with, it does not mean that you're broken. And for me, that brings a tremendous amount of hope. For me, that brings a tremendous amount of life. It brings a tremendous amount of joy knowing that there is the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. One of the things that I believe it was Emily, I don't know if you said it or if Ruby you said it, but you talked about when you become a billionaire, you take from other people in order to increase your own worth. But one of the things that I can't help but think about when it comes to anybody that's a billionaire. So Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, is there's this philanthropic mindset. There's this charitable mindset where you've amassed all of this wealth. You've amassed all of this income and you're able to go anywhere you want, do anything you want, be anyone that you want. And while it's true that all of that is for you primarily, it has to be about you. It cannot be about anybody else. It cannot be for anybody else. You have to prioritize yourself. You have to look out for yourself first. You have to love yourself first. You have to believe that you are inherently worth it, that you are inherently valuable. And anything and everything that you do has to be for yourself. But I can't help but look at this overflow, this abundance, this tremendous wealth that comes from what you ladies are speaking about, but also the ability where not only are you taking to increase your wealth, but I think there also has to be this outflow, this outworking where now everything that you're receiving, it seems to me like the more you receive, the more you give. And I think that's ultimately what the Energy Billionaires platform on Instagram is intended on doing is we've gone through some stuff. Life has lifed for both of us. We've gone through experiences. We've realized where we shrank ourselves. We've realized where we didn't fully understand who we were. We've experienced this awakening. We've experienced this new lease on life, so to speak. Now we are in a place where we're not perfect. We don't have it all figured out. We may not be experts, but we have something to offer. And this is what Lewis Huckstep said when him and I had a conversation last year is you turn your pain into your purpose and you turn your wounds into wisdom. For me, I find such joy in that the pain that I've experienced, the pain that you, Emily, have experienced, the pain that you, Ruby, have experienced is now fueling your purpose. And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about this. I'm going to use the word charity And I want to use the word philanthropy, where now you take what you're learning, you take what you're receiving, but now you're able to make contributions into the lives of those that are around you, where it's not just you that's becoming a billionaire, but now you're helping other people to become that for themselves.
I think this is a super, super important point to talk about because you're right. Ultimately, this is the vision for this work that it begins with you, but ultimately you are that force multiplier and you give it back. And I actually want to use the word multiply instead of the philanthropy and charity. It's actually, we have this framework for how to think about the different phases of becoming an energy billionaire. And the last one is multiply. It's about, the concept is once you have this internal light, this internal energy, this internal knowing of your worth, you are able to then spread it. And what's cool is that it comes in different forms, right? For the billionaires, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon, all those guys, it is maybe in financial terms. But for me, again, speaking personally, I've experienced this in my close relationships with friends and family, and being able to be the one to have this secure core and this light coming from where I was. I've seen how that has positively impacted the close people around me. So the multiplication comes in many, many different forms. And you're right that the hope with what we are building is that the more women, men, whoever are able to do this work, it is a complete force multiplier.
Yeah.
I like that you
And
use the word multiply. Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I what I think is interesting is because I also spend a lot of time online. I just see the general consensus of what people think a billionaire is. So that's also why I said, yeah, a lot of people believe that in order to be a billionaire, you need to take from other people. But what I find beautiful about the concept of having more than you need is that you can direct it towards people or situations that maybe need it. So for example, when you are guarding your energy, you're actively saying no to a lot of things. The moment you say yes, it has way more meaning instead of you always saying yes because you're afraid to say no. And the people around you will also notice that when you finally say yes, or when you not finally say yes, but when you say yes with meaning, it means a lot more when you're there. And that's, yeah, what I think is beautiful from the multiply.
And it like the cool thing is like the different scales that it works on as well. Like in my day to day today, for example, the number of people that I've like the interactions, the number of people that I've smiled at and people have smiled back, like that mini exchange of good energy is powerful. Like it spreads. Like maybe they'll go and smile at someone else who needed to see a smile. It's like all the way from those tiny micro upgrades all the way through to redistributing millions of dollars if that's your ultimate goal. But I think again, the cool thing is that we all have the power within us to contribute and multiply back in some form, and it will look different for everyone. And even the way that you are doing it now, right, Steve, with your platform, like that's a beautiful example of the way that you are giving back the energy to others that need it and share it, to share all of your learnings.
You know what I want to go on the record as saying is that I am not an expert. I don't have it all figured out. I think all three of us would agree. We're not experts. We don't have everything figured out. We're still learning. We're still growing. And I think that's why, if you look at my page, you'll see a number of posts where you don't see me, you don't see my face, you don't hear my voice, because I wanted to portray myself as a student. I wanted to portray myself as someone that's learning. I want to portray myself as someone that's willing to have the conversations, someone that's willing to grow. And only recently, and it really is directly connected with beginning to really understand my worth, really understand my value, making the conscious decision that I had said no to a lot of things that I should have said yes to because I think both can be true. There's a lot of things that we say no to that we should have said yes to. And the reason why people are starting to see me more on my page is because it's from a place of understanding my worth, understanding my value. Someone asked me before I literally torpedoed my life a couple months ago, someone asked this question of me: how would your life change if you began understanding your worth? How would your life change if you began understanding your value? If you truly began understanding your purpose, if you truly began understanding your identity, what would your decisions look like? What would your choices make? And I was unable to let that go. And it's why I made the decision to do what I did. And you know what? Not everybody is going to understand that. And I'm going to reference, Emily, your post, because I think you used the word Moody Margaret in your post. And in your post, you seem to suggest that people didn't understand what was going on. People didn't understand. And I think a lot of people would much rather you in that unhealthy place, impose their own boundaries upon you. They would want to impose their own labels, their own limitations. They want to keep you small because when you're small, you're more palatable. When you're small, you're easily digestible. Think about the whole concept of even when we consume food, the goal is to get it smaller so that way you can digest it. It makes it easier. And I think that there's a lot of people, that's what they do. They want to make us smaller so that way we can be more digestible for them. And I have to say that I am at a point in my life where that is no longer acceptable. That is no longer a life that I am willing to live. I think a lot of people are starting to come to terms with that. And I have to say, Emily, I love that you use the word multiply even above charity and philanthropy. I think that's such a great word. And you actually took it a step deeper and you used the phrase force multiplier. And you refer to it as what I would say is a principle. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this whole concept of energy billionaires, it seems to me there may be principles that are involved with it. And so when I see your page, it looks like this energy billionaires is this like encyclopedia book where you have all of these lessons and these principles, and I'm like, is this in Kindle version? Like, is there an Audible version that I can listen to? Can I go to Barnes and Noble and find this book? Like, how do I get a hold of this book? But ladies, correct me if I'm wrong, but are there principles that if someone were to say, you know what, Emily, Ruby, Stephen, I hear what you're saying, not quite sure how to get there, I'm not quite sure how to make this happen, are there any principles or any core beliefs or realities that would help someone to make this shift in their life?
There are. And I love that you have said that. Maybe we need to bring out the book version and just start leaving it around little parts of, little different places in Bali and the UK. But the way we think about it is the laws of energy economics. And we have distilled it down to 5 different principles, to use your language, or laws. And as I mentioned, they're sequential, and the last one is about multiplication. But to walk you through the other 4, the word we use is claim. So this is the acronym. So the first law is all about creation. You've got to create your inner life first, from the inside out. Nothing is going to change if you don't love yourself, if you don't forgive yourself, if you don't let go of shame, if you don't accept who you fully are. So it's really about creating that inner peace and that inner security. The second law is about locking. So this is the L. Once you have that, it's so important to lock it in. Often this is the painful time of letting go of friendships in some cases. This is the painful part of saying no to things that you don't actually want to do. This is the uncomfortable part of setting boundaries that you may never have set before. But it's so important to have that watertight lock around your energy. The third is then about allocation. So it's the A. You've got to allocate your energy intentionally to where it is you want to go. I love this part, right? This is the who is my higher self? What is the dream life that I want to live? Okay, is like, how important is money to me? How important is relationships to me? Setting that out very clearly and then intentionally aligning your actions to get there. Then we've got the I, which is about investigate. So, once you've gone through that, you're doing pretty well. Like you're pretty far ahead, you're advanced. But it's always good at this point just to do a step back and think about, are there any patterns that are still holding me back? Maybe the subconscious limiting beliefs, maybe that situationship that I thought I'd let go, but sometimes comes back in. Maybe it's a moment of self-sabotage you have before the breakthrough, like really doing that analysis on yourself, that investigation of, okay, what is like the final thing I need to let go or step into to really become that energy billionaire? And then, of course, the last one is so multiplying, really feeling like you are a source of abundance, not necessarily financially, but energetically, of light, of smiling at people, and just having the knowledge and the confidence to go out and really share that. That's the overarching framework. There's then a lot of like additional steps, a lot of additional examples that we have poured our minds over and written out. But that's it at its core. And I think it's the greatest distillation of everything that Ruby and I wish we had known when we started all of this, is how I would describe it.
Yeah, that's
So, in light of becoming energetically wealthy, in light of understanding who you are, I think, Ruby, I'm going to begin with you. What has been the greatest lesson that you have learned? Whether it's a lesson you've learned about yourself, it's a lesson you've learned about life, it's a lesson you've learned about relationships, however you want to take it and spin it. Ruby, I'll begin with you. What has been perhaps the greatest lesson that you've learned? And then Emily, will go to you, and I would love to know yours as well.
That's a beautiful question. That's a beautiful question. I think the biggest thing I learned through the whole journey is it's not real. Like you can literally make anything what you want. If you want to wake up tomorrow and you want to do something completely different, while it may be scary, you can do it. And then all of a sudden you're in a completely different reality. One thing for me was I always thought I was an evening person and that I hated mornings. And then one day I woke up and was like, I'm going to challenge that belief. And now I'm actually a complete morning person. So
Wow.
anything you have like so deeply ingrained in yourself that you think right now that's completely me, you can turn it around.
Uh,
I love it. And I can confirm Ruby is the most psychotic morning person I know. She's like up 3 hours earlier than me every day. 3 hours of work on her third coffee by the time I roll around and wake up. But it's so true. For me, the most completely the sentence that shifted my entire life and that applies to everything I now think and do is your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner one. And that is
mm,
my North Star to what I take through everything now.
mm,
Yeah, one thing, Stephen, that you said earlier is sometimes people will try and keep you small because you need to be easy to digest. And this also goes a little bit back on what Emily said, that's also a direct reflection of how they view the world and what's possible. And it's not always to keep you small, but sometimes they can just not comprehend that what you're about to do is possible. And I also think that that's really interesting.
I think for me, as we bring this to a close, the biggest lesson that I have learned myself personally is that no one is coming to save me. No one is coming to do the work for me. I and I alone bear the responsibility of my own inner reality, like Emily, you talked about, and like Ruby, you also speak of, is that we are responsible for ourselves. I am responsible for my worth. I'm responsible for my value. I'm responsible for my identity. I'm responsible for my purpose. And for me, the greatest lesson I think if I could give it an overarching, all encompassing statement, is that the time has come to take my life back. That's a moment that you experienced, Emily. That's a moment that you experienced, Ruby, where you came to the realization that we need to take our lives back. And the minute you make the decision to take your life back is the minute that your inner world, I think, has to always change first. And I love that so much. Your inner world has to change first. And once your inner world, your inner landscape, your emotional framework, your mental reality, your spiritual reality, once these things change inside of you, then it's only a matter of time, and it will not be a quick process. It's not going to be an immediate process. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take work. It's going to even expend energy, honestly, to bring that, because I think that's another part that maybe we'll have another conversation and talk about the energy that we need to expend in order to keep this process going, in order to contribute to our inner world, because I think that's probably something we haven't even touched on in our time together, is what's actually required for us to keep this sustaining and what's actually required for us to keep this going, because the goal is to not become a billionaire only to then become broke shortly thereafter. And how, if you've become a billionaire, great. Now let's put in the work and do what is needed to stay a billionaire, because the last thing that you wanted to do is go back to who you were, where you were, what you were before you made that decision. And I think that if there's one thing that I could say to anybody that would listen to this or watch this, is it's time to take your life back. It's time to understand your worth. It's time to understand your value. It's time to understand your purpose. It's time to understand who you were created to be. And you have to make the decision, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? If you want to go somewhere you've never gone before, you have to do something you've never done before. And so, Emily, Ruby, I want to thank you for your time. Emily, thanks for joining all the way from the UK. Ruby, thanks for joining all the way from Indonesia. I've never been to Indonesia, but I have been to the UK. I have been to the Netherlands. And so, ladies, thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for the work that you do. And if anyone is not familiar with their Instagram handle, it's the Energy Billionaires. I would encourage you, find their page, follow them, like them, support them, reshare their posts. God knows I do it every single day. And ladies, it has been an honor. It's been a privilege to be able to have both of you on.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much. Thank you. And we'll speak soon.